Famine is stopping many aid workers doing essential tasks to help Palestinians who are battling hunger caused by the Israeli blockade in the Gaza Strip. The International Red Cross and Red Crescent is sounding the alarm. They, of course, lost 15 staff in the Rafah paramedic massacre back in March. Since then, their staff are working under danger of death by munitions or by hunger. Since May, over 1,000 Palestinians, including aid seekers and workers, have been killed while attempting to access food. Many of them at aid distribution sites or along delivery routes, including those run by the US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The conflict has been the deadliest ever for UN personnel in one single conflict. The UNRWA, for instance, suffering the loss of at least 136 staff as of 2024, and that figure, of course, continues to rise. But from the International Red Cross and Red Crescent comes this call, a warning about famine affecting humanitarian workers. Let's bring in Tommaso Della Longa, spokesperson for the International Foundation of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. Tommaso, thank you as always for joining us. Famine, of course, Israel says it's not happening in Gaza. What's your viewpoint?
Thanks a lot for having me tonight, Mark. Well, I mean, I don't think that is my own viewpoint. Is what colleagues of Palestine and Crescent are telling us every day, what we are seeing even now in this horrific footage that you are showing. Famine is there, has been certified by international organizations, and is only sadly the confirmation of our worst fear, that in Gaza, people are not anymore dying for bombardments and lack of health and all the rest of the things that we know, but they're also dying for hunger. And even humanitarian workers are hit by these, and we have some horrific stories coming from Palestine Red Crescent of colleagues who are even giving their meal to their children because it's the only thing that they can do.
I know people like yourself and your colleagues really don't like talking about how you're affected by these things because you are there to help the others. So I think it's indicative of how bad the situation is becoming that you are speaking out right now and your colleagues are speaking out right now. Can you give us more of an idea of how difficult it is becoming for your colleagues to do their essential work on site in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, thanks a lot for saying that. It is absolutely true that usually our focus is not on us, on our colleagues, but of course on the people and the communities. Actually, we thought that these horrific testimonies of Palestine and Crescent would have helped to raise the attention and the alarm on what is happening in Gaza. What we are seeing here is that our women and men are part of their communities, are volunteers. So they're affected themselves in the last 22 months. And now, as everyone in the Gaza Strip, I would say, they're not capable to bring food to themselves, but also to their families. So what we are discussing here is that doctors, nurses, paramedics have to dream basically a piece of bread when they can. And, you know, a colleague was telling me living with hunger means that you're dreaming food. And even if when you have a piece of bread, you have to protect it all the day long to bring it to your children. And at the end of the day, you need also to apologize and saying, be patient, because it's the only thing that we can eat. Or another colleague was telling us we are trying to go to bed earlier so we can say to our children that they will feel less hunger. And of course, this is extremely difficult. And then hunger, I want to also to say, it's a silent killer. Of course, bombardments are, if you want, straightforward, and it's clear what has happened. And when it's coming to hunger, the body will be weaker and weaker and weaker. And then malnutrition will kill, but also preventable diseases will hit bodies that don't have anymore the strength to fight back. So the situation, if there is no entrance to humanitarian aid, if there is no food entering in Gaza Strip, will just become worse and worse, minute after minute, I would say.
And Thomas, so the children especially are the most vulnerable, aren't they? Because if they don't get the right amount of food at the right time, at the start of their lives, they can't build up that resistance. They can't build the strength to battle against these illnesses you're talking about. Israel's making claims that aid is being provided to the Palestinians in Gaza. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, if the aid given to the Palestinians in Gaza is what is referred as a new humanitarian mechanism, or the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or the airdrops we are seeing now is not even near to what is needed. I mean, here we are talking about 2 million civilians who need everything, who need basic items. So there is in a situation where there is no water sanitation, where hospitals are basically collapsed, and where food is not enough. And we are talking about months, not days or weeks, where humanitarian aid basically is not crossing any border, is not entering Gaza Strip. In such an incredible, horrific, unprecedented situation, you need to just to have a humanitarian operational scale, you need to bring way more food, way more humanitarian aid, and give the permit to skilled, neutral, and people well known and well respected by the communities, humanitarian workers, to do their job and to create a safe space where civilians can get in a different manner than what we are seeing now in your footage, food that they deserve. Getting food is a right for everyone.
And just to underline to people who may have just joined this conversation, that we're talking Red Cross, Red Crescent workers who are there to help on a humanitarian level. It's not a political level, it's a humanitarian level. They're there to help, and they're at risk, either by being killed by munitions or by starving.
This is exactly what is happening. Thanks, Mark, to put it so nicely out there. We've been seeing since the beginning of this horrific conflict, people, colleagues killed of the Magen David Adom in Israel, and then 31 colleagues between Gaza and West Bank. And if you count also colleagues who have been killed in bombardments as every other civilian in the Gaza Strip, the number goes way beyond 50. And this is, of course, unprecedented. Is against any law, is against anything that was taken for granted by the international community, because Red Cross and Crescent people, humanitarian workers, must be protected and respected all the time. And actually, this again, the mirror, the icon of what is happening to everyone in the Gaza Strip. There is no respect, there is no protection, there is no food, there is no water, and people are starving to death. And in the middle of this, of course, weakening doctors, nurses, paramedics means weakening entire communities, so will not be able to get the support they need.
Tommaso Della Longa of the International Foundation of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent, thank you for joining us and highlighting the problems that your workers are facing on site, and of course amplified again by the problems Palestinians are facing on a day-to-day basis as the bombardment and the lack of supplies continues. And of course it's worth underlining that the international press, journalists, are not allowed to enter the Gaza Strip. That has been a ban put on by Israel. I for one, have signed the petition to get that overturned, but we'll wait to see what happens with that. In the meantime, Tommaso, power to you and your colleagues, and I hope that they can work hard to find the food to get to the people who most need it, regardless of politics, regardless of what you think. Children need to be fed, at least. That's the basic thing. So, Tommaso, thank you for shedding light on the situation there in the Gaza Strip for us. Tommaso Della Longa of the International Foundation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent. Thank you, sir.